I was going to do a gimmick where I'd shave my head and then by the end of the review I'd have a faux head of hair again, but I decided against it. Buzzcut jump scare.
Based on the book of the same name, Cherry takes place from 2002 to 2021, following the story of a college student who joins the army and returns with PTSD. To cope with the distress, he and his wife start shooting up heroin, which causes him to rob banks to feed their addiction. As COVID continued to ravage theaters and I was desperately searching for movies to review, I came across this one. I thought, okay, Tom Holland and the Russo brothers are branching out. They're trying to diversify their careers a little bit. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I was hoping that, if nothing else, Tom Holland would win me over as an actor. I know he's had stuff he's done before and since being cast as Spider-Man, but I don't think he's quite broken that persona.
I did like him in The Devil All the Time, so I was looking forward to seeing how he would do in this movie.
It's become a sort of rite of passage for every live-action Spider-Man actor to star in a military movie of some kind. Tom Holland in this movie, Andrew Garfield in Hacksaw Ridge, and Tobey Maguire in Brothers. Funny enough, Maguire's co-star, Jake Gyllenhaal, was once rumored to replace him for Spider-Man 2. Instead, he became Mysterio in Tom Holland's Spider-Man 2.
Kind of funny how there's more than one Spider-Man connection when it comes to Jake Gyllenhaal.
Also, one Spider-Man 2 is clearly better than the other.
So this movie is just one big experiment for the Russo brothers and Tom Holland to break away from the MCU, just completely do something radically different. Does it succeed? Well, let's talk a little bit about the source.
The book it's based on was written by a guy called Nico Walker, and it's described as an autofiction, meaning that the story is technically about the author's life, but enough details are changed that it can't be classified as a biography. He did serve as a combat medic from 2005 to 2006 during the Iraq War, going on more than 250 missions. Then when he came home, he got addicted to opioids and heroin, and then landed in prison from 2012 to October of 2019, after robbing 10 banks from December 2010 to April 2011. He hails from Cleveland, Ohio, the same city that the Russo brothers are from.
Now that's all well and good, but what do I think about it? Well, it's certainly a departure for the Russos and Tom Holland. I can tell you that much. I will say this, it is very different from their previous work, but just because it is different doesn't automatically make it good.
I feel like the best way to go over both mediums is to just go through them in the order they are presented, covering the book and the movie at the same time. The movie starts pretty much where it ends, with Tom Holland's character, Cherry, robbing a bank to feed his drug addiction, and then we get introduced to two elements that will follow us throughout the rest of the movie. Narration in both voiceover and fourth wall breaking form.
They take all the beautiful things to heart, and then they fuck my heart.
I got a lot of sadness in the face to make up for, so I gotta act like I'm crazy or people will think I'm a pussy.
It's a competently shot sequence, but then we immediately cut away to the true beginning of the story. As I mentioned in the previous episode, starting a movie near the end is probably one of the worst ways of doing so. I know that the book starts near the end of the story itself, but honestly, the book itself isn't that great either. I understand the creative choices here. There are plenty of good movies that start near or at the end. John Wick, Pulp Fiction, Casino.
That last example is ironic, considering how Joe Russo feels about Scorsese.
That being said, there is an art to it. It's an interesting hook, a good way to get audiences curious about what series of events had to happen in order to lead to this moment, but you don't want them to be hanging around just for the payoff. You want them to get so engrossed in the story that by the time that moment comes back at the end, they're reminded of it, but they're not holding out for it. In the case of this movie and Silk Road, you're just waiting for the payoff. The movie then brings us to Cherry in his college days, and when he first meets the woman who become the love of his life, Emily, a rename of Nico's wife, Kara. Something you'll pick up right away is that the movie tends to jump through time a lot. It doesn't really let scenes marinate, it always feels like it's in a rush to show everything. Granted, what happens is pretty much verbatim to the book, which again makes the book a flimsy foundation. However, that's where you have to be a little bit creative with how you adapt the story. In order to make a good adaptation, you have to let the audience sit with the emotions, and sometimes you have to make changes when bringing the book to the big screen. Not to mention, there have been plenty of times where sometimes the movie adaptation is better than the book itself. So perhaps it would have been better if the writers hadn't quite stuck to the letter for this one. There are some moments of creativity that I like in this scene here when Cherry is trying to figure out what's going on with an overdraft charge and the teller is covered in shadows, highlighting the distance and impersonality of the bank.
But that's not possible. I haven't made a withdrawal since the last deposit.
That deposit brought your balance up to $10 credit, but there was an additional overdraft charge against your account that put you back in the negative.
But how could you charge me another overdraft charge after I'd paid it off already?
The deposit didn't clear in time.
No, but I paid it here in cash.
It didn't clear, sir.
It was fucking cash, right here.
It didn't clear.
The first segment is a dysfunctional love story, with a lot of Cherry's inner monologue and commentary toned way down in comparison with the book. Cherry, played by Tom Holland, is a guy who seems to be trying to hold on to his innocence. Cherry, in Nico Walker's book, is a borderline complete degenerate with no filter. You wouldn't get it from this movie, but he's kind of a shithead. He's always taking some drug, looking for his next high. He's not even sure if he loves Emily. When they get married, it feels less like a declaration of love and more like a contract. You kind of get that sense with the movie, but you really get it from the book.
And I had to go to basic training.
So Cherry goes off to basic training, where he goes through the rigorous exercises and drills meant to turn him into a killing machine. When we get to training, the aspect ratio changes to the 4:3 Academy standard. I'm assuming it's supposed to give the feel of an old army training video, but the sudden shift feels jarring. We also get one of the weirdest shots of the movie.
All good? Next.
Oh great, now we can all say we've been up Tom Holland's ass. Credit where credit is due. There is dialogue and voiceover that's ripped straight from the novel, but it feels more like a checklist. A repeating issue throughout the movie is that they hit all the moments, but the context isn't quite explained, and comes out of nowhere. Like I said, the book itself isn't great, and both suffer the same flaws of not really letting you marinate with different moments. It's always jumping from one thing to the next. I think the longest chapter in the book is about 5 pages. The book got praised to high heaven when it came out, but having read it for myself, I have to ask where this praise is coming from. The chapters are super short, I'll give it that, but it's written in a way by someone who's trying way too hard to sound edgy and dangerous. So I will say, given the material, this movie already has a rocky foundation. Which begs the question, why was this picked up to be adapted in the first place?
So don't ever join the fucking army.
And make sure the book you're adapting is worth reading before you hand the author a $1 million check. This is the segment where both the novel and the movie really start to take shape and get interesting. The combat scenes are bombastic and gritty, but never exploitative. The quiet moments make you feel uneasy, that the group could be under attack at any moment. Now, to play devil's advocate, this is where I think the Russos thought they had something special on their hands. It feels like the Russo brothers really wanted to make a war movie, but got stuck adapting the tragic downfall of a dope fiend. In the book, Cherry's deployment eats up the bulk of the pages, and it goes into more detail about who's in his squad, and the tragedies that he experiences.
Oh, shit. No.
Smell is something that you already know. It's coated in your blood. The smoke gets in your pores and every gland. Your mouth is full of it.
However, you never get that depth with this movie, because, as I previously mentioned, it skims along.
What's weird is that this movie probably could have benefited from another 40 minutes, but at the same time, at 141 minutes, it's already way too long. This movie has fallen into this trap where it doesn't need to take this much time, but it also could do some more time to properly adapt the book.
The cinematography is quite well put together, especially during the time of Cherry's deployment. That might just be because of the DOP's previous work. Newton Thomas Sigel, the cinematographer, worked on 3 Kings, Valkyrie, Extraction, and The Five Bloods. He definitely knows how to shoot military movies. The rest of his career is quite notable for his collaborations with director Bryan Singer. Bohemian Rhapsody, The Usual Suspects, Superman Returns, the X-Men movies. Sigel was also DOP for Drive, otherwise known as literally Me, the movie. This segment is easily the strongest of the movie. It does not shy away from the grisly details. It has the most emotional of death, and Tom Holland gets to show the most amount of acting range, and the Russo direction is the most straightforward. These two segments kind of blend together and tell the big downfall of Cherry, him and Emily getting addicted to heroin, their lives falling apart, the friends they lose, and how he turns to bank robbery.
And after he got back, Joe had problems for a while.
Oh, shit, fuck!
I mean, he wasn't the only one with problems.
If there's one thing this movie does right, it's portraying just how grimy and outright disgusting a junkie's lifestyle can be. You feel unclean as you spend time in their house, and you're just holding your breath waiting for one bad hit to take them out for good. It almost happens with Emily, as she overdoses and nearly dies. Something else I appreciated about the movie was how we see things a bit more from Cherry's point of view. Like he doesn't pay attention to the name of the doctor, or the bank that he's robbing.
You never lock a gunman in with innocent people. You're supposed to lock me in between the fucking doors. What's the matter with you people? Are you retarded?
However, the movie's attempts at being artsy do rear its ugly head from time to time. Like in this scene, where Cherry leans into the sink, but his reflection doesn't. Art. Or this moment, when the shadow lifts off the bank teller as Cherry robs his first bank. Things spiral out of control for Cherry, as his friends die around him and a kingpin named Black is closing in on him. He fully believes he's going to die, but it turns out all Black wants him to do is pull off one more robbery. In the book, Black is more of a character, but in here he's just this mysterious figure whose face we never really get to see. This segment ends with the beginning of the movie. Cherry decides to give himself up, he pays Black the money he's owed, fires his gun into the sky, and takes one last hit before he's surrounded by police. There's quite a bit of slow motion, like a lot. Even for this final moment, the entire bit is about twice as long as necessary. This part of the story is pretty much just a clip reel of Cherry's rehabilitation in prison. The camera just slides back and forth as his appearance gradually changes. Keep in mind, this was not in the book. In fact, the book more or less ends where part 5 of this movie ends, with him getting caught by the police. This montage is what really makes things frustrating. It's a very basic visual display of him gradually sobering up and getting better, but it lacks a touch of humanity. Feels like something that was added on last minute, and the Russo brothers just thought it would be artsy, quote unquote.
They struggled with the whole show don't tell concept throughout the movie, and then by the end, they take it too literally.
The ending shot of him leaving prison, seeing Emily, and smiling feels way too cheesy. I think cutting it just as he was leaving prison would be a good note to end it on. And fun fact, this movie entered production around the same time Nico Walker was released from prison.
Cherry was a big gamble for all parties involved. A moment for Tom Holland to showcase himself as a serious actor and break the mold of being Spider-Man. An opportunity for the Russos to flex their directorial chops outside the MCU. And Apple got a movie to add to their streaming service catalog.
The big problem with Cherry is that it wants to be this sprawling epic, but winds up jumping around all over the place. Probably the most offensive thing about this movie is that you can tell the Russos are desperately trying to shed their image as the MCU duo and prove themselves as legitimate quote-unquote filmmakers. It's very self-aware that it's trying to be an art house project. Like the creative choices are made to bring critical praise rather than tell a compelling story, or add to telling said story. In the end, it just makes the whole thing feel, dare I say it, pretentious. It's a movie that's kind of hard to root for. You want these guys to build a career outside of their Captain America and Avengers movies, but when it's self-indulgent crap like this, you understand why they're open to directing Avengers 5. It doesn't feel like it's trying, just throwing crap at the wall and hoping some things stick.
It wants to be the next Irishman, but winds up being another All Eyes on Me. More concerned about referencing events that happened rather than delving deep into them and constructing a proper narrative or character moments around them.
The book does go into more detail about certain events, but it's still a clumsy read. Feels like someone trying to sell himself as more of a hardened badass than he actually is. Hopefully this does open the doors for Tom Holland to work with more auteur directors in the future, because it does feel like Spider-Man has hijacked his career. The Devil All the Time was pretty good. You should check that out if you want to see Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson give top-notch performances. Overall, Cherry is one of those books that probably should have stayed as a book. Some novels just aren't meant to be adapted, unless you have a concrete vision of what you want the movie to look like. That's what ultimately set this movie back. A lack of vision. I don't think this movie was made because there was a burning passion to tell this story. I think it was to serve as an ego project for the Russos, Something for them to hold up and say, see, we're filmmakers too, we're good at this, we can make art as well. It's a good thing this has a home on Apple TV Plus after its brief theatrical run, because it's only really worth a watch if it's on streaming.
Alright, that's my review of Cherry. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, this is the Canadian Movie Buff saying I hope you had a fantastic weekend at the movies. And now, if you excuse me, I think I might go play some D&D and randomly go on a road trip adventure.